This video is about the very important technique of paraphrasing. So, what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is putting a sentence into different words. Why do we do it? To use information from another source without copying and without plagiarizing. It's a great way to learn new vocabulary. And if you take the TOEFL IBT, paraphrasing will be a very useful skill in the writing and speaking parts. Remember, paraphrasing is not about rules, it's about options. Know all your options and be able to use them. Here are some important keys. Don't change the meaning. Don't leave out important information. Don't copy the original. And don't use too much of the original wording. In other words, change the original as much as possible without omitting important information or changing the meaning. So let's look at an example. Here's the original statement. Now look at this paraphrase. Is it a good paraphrase? No, this is not a good paraphrase because it is too similar to the original. It only changes one word and the structure from active to passive. Here's a better one. Here we used 4 words that were different, plus we changed the active to passive voice. What about this one? Here's the original. And here's a paraphrase. Is it a good paraphrase? No, it leaves out important information. Here's a better one. And finally, take a look at this one. And is this a good paraphrase? No, it changes the meaning. Here's a better one. Now practice determining if the paraphrase is a good one with these questions. Now let's look at some techniques for paraphrasing. The first one is using synonyms and changing the word order. Here's an example. And here's the paraphrase. Notice that we changed hardest and learn to synonyms and we changed the word order. Tip: use a dictionary or a thesaurus to find synonyms. And here's a great resource to find synonyms, thesaurus.com. Now do the question on synonyms and word order. Our next technique is using explanations and opposites. What if you don't know any synonyms? Well, you can just describe it, explain it, or use an opposite. Here are some examples. If you don't know the word warrant, you can just say written authorization. Or if you don't know skyscrapers, you can say tall buildings. And you can always say the opposite, slow to not fast. Now do the question on descriptions and opposites. Our next technique is changing active to passive voice, or vice versa. Here's a simple example. And here's a more complex example. Now do the question on active and passive voice. Our next technique is chronology expressions. We can say A happened before B, or we can say B happened after A. Both mean the same thing. Here are some examples of chronology expressions. Before, prior to, preceding, after, following, by, when, until, and not until. Here's an example. And here's the paraphrase. The original talks about something that is of a lower quantity after the government program. The paraphrase talks about something that was higher before the government program. They both mean the same thing. Also notice we changed some of the wording. Now do the question on chronology. Our last technique is cause and consequence. Here are some cause words. Because, since, because of, due to, owing to. And here are some consequence words. Therefore, consequently, as a consequence, so. Look at this example and two different paraphrases. Here's the original. Here's one paraphrase. Notice that we used a different cause word, since instead of because, and we also changed the order of the phrases. And here's another paraphrase. Here we used a consequence word, so, instead of the original cause word, because. And we also changed the order of the phrases. Now do the question on cause and consequence. So, let's sum up. How many different paraphrasing techniques can you remember? Stop the video and try to remember them. The most important thing to remember is to change the original as much as possible without omitting important information or changing the meaning. Know all your options and be able to use them.